It is indeed my pleasure to join you from Kirribati virtually on this important panel discussion. And I understand that we will have a very short time in which to make the presentation. And as I understand it, the idea is to be as provocative as possible so that we can generate debate, discussion, even argument, hopefully. And so I will not go into the process of presenting a very well written, structured statement, but just throw in a few points which might be acceptable to some and might be provocative to some. But of course, that is the idea. And so I'll just make the following points in the time that I have. And the first thing I want to make is when we talk about shared identity, we've got to understand that we do share many things in common. We know that we share the systems of government, democracy, and the principles associated with that. And so therein are the commonalities we have. And of course, we're in the same part of the world. And also our history, I think some of our history, which is not, it's well known, but I believe not well publicized. And the fact that in Australia, there are many of our people who have been kidnapped and taken over to Australia and as blackbirding during the blackbirding days. And so, and certainly from Kiribati, Vanuatu, or Solomon Islands, I'm sure there are people who were taken there and now have become part of your First Nations people. And I presume they are classified as that because the origins were never traced back. So apart from that, I want to make the following points, which I believe is important to our discussion. Firstly, I want to make it very clear that climate change remains the primary security issue for the Pacific Island countries, and not the superpower ivory that's becoming more prominent today. And I think successive statements have come from the Pacific countries to indicate that is so. I'm a member of the Pacific Elders Voice, and we have as a group issued a statement that, in spite of the ongoing debate over China's movement initiatives in the region, we believe that they should not distract us from the primary focus of our concern, which is climate change. The second point I want to make that sometimes there are very discriminatory policies, especially on immigration. There is no question, and I don't think anybody can dispute the fact that there are overt racist policies with respect to First Nations people in Australia. And of course, it's got to be understood that we associate with First Nations people being Indigenous people to our own different countries. And of course, we have that connection which I've made earlier. The third point I want to make is what I believe to be the complacency in the relationship between Pacific Island countries, Australia, New Zealand, and the United States. We believe that we warranted more attention in the past than we do today. In other words, I believe we have been taken for granted for quite some time, and that seems to be changing now. I think as number four, aid seemed to have been regarded as what it will buy goodwill and establish that we acknowledge that Australia has always been our biggest development partner, but relations still have to be cultivated. I think we accept aid, and there are those countries who would say, but you owe us that because of what we have contributed in the past by way of our people who were blackbirded. In the case of Kirribati Nauru, we provided all of the phosphate, which developed your industry in the early days, your primary industry. The fifth point I want to make is there is this very clear proprietorial ownership, a sense of ownership by Australia and New Zealand, which comes out every once in a while to say that we are bosses here, and any country that wants to establish relations with these countries needs to work with us or go through us. Now, we see that happening, and we don't always welcome it. Of course, there is the very aggressive initiatives by China to the Pacific, and I see this as enhancing the value of our countries. I think we can see that as enhancing our bargaining position with respect to climate change and whatever else. The seventh point I want to make is that the Pacific Islands Forum, which was set up in the 1970s to capture the newly emerging independent Pacific Island countries, may no longer have the bond that it once had to keep the Pacific Island countries under control. Um, that has happened for a number of reasons, and I suspect one reason is because the suspension of Fiji in 2005 opened the eyes of other Pacific Island countries to the possibility of actually establishing beneficial relations with other countries. When Fiji started looking around, we saw that happening, and we started to understand that we can now take a 360-degree vision of our relationship with the world, and that we matter, that our votes in the United Nations count. And of course, finally, I want to make it clear that when we voted Australia onto we helped vote Australia on the United Nations Security Council in 2012 on the basis that Australia would advocate climate change as a security issue. Well, at the end of Australia's tenure in 2013, it submitted its terminal report, and in that report, there was no mention of the Pacific Island countries. There was no mention of climate change, but there was a very large uh, paragraph on Australia's contribution to trying to locate the Malaysian airline that disappeared. And so, in order to discuss, to um, in order to to promote our discussion today, I've always said that in order for us to reverse what's now happening, there's got to be enough, or that's got to be made, that we in the Pacific cannot refuse. With these words, I thank you for your attention. Hopefully, my remarks would have promoted some discussion and provoked some argument and debate, if possible. Thank you.